What is going on? Back again for another vlog. You guys seem to enjoy the last one, so I figured let's keep this thing going. So I just got back from a documentary shoot over the course of 2 weeks. It was split up, 2 different locations. In this vlog, I'm gonna kind of go through the behind the scenes of the first leg of the trip. So yeah, it was a really good time. It was a sports documentary on a college rivalry. So yeah, I figured today I'll kind of break down and show you some of these interview setups, some of the other things, and just overall talk about the experience. So yeah, you could see me packing up. I brought my FX6 on the trip along with some stands and some other stuff, all packed up in the Uber. And that is fully loaded in the minivan there. I love a good minivan. And we were off. We're driving about 200 miles south. It's funny, you know, I got the iPhone 15 Pro, and at first I'm like, oh, I want to shoot log, and I did it a few times, and I'm like, all right, this is cool, but defeats the whole beauty of the iPhone. There's something about just being able to whip your iPhone out and go from a wide angle lens to a super telephoto lens with the click of a button, colors all baked in, that HDR imagery. Could I bring a log image back onto my computer and nerd out and be like, holy, looks just as good as like my FX3, which I've done, and you know, I bought like phantom LUTs for my iPhone, and I kind of been blown away how I could easily match my other cameras. Anyways, though, maybe I'll deep dive back into the iPhone stuff, but for now I'm just liking baked in. So what was cool about this trip is we were down in Maryland, and I went to college, Towson University. That's where I studied film, and this was my first gig back in Maryland in, you know, probably 7 or 8 years, so it was kind of like a nice homecoming sort of thing. Had a pretty nice dinner the first night, and then I was back in the hotel. One of my favorite things about the Aperture MC, besides just, you know, it being like a light you could use in your shots, is when you're breaking down or you're just somewhere that's like a little bit dark, just popping that Aperture MC. I use it as a work light all the time. I built my camera up in a different configuration because I usually, with the Easy Rig, I have the monitor kind of behind the clamp, and the main issue with that, I can only raise the Easy Rig so high before the monitor hits the top of it. So yeah, I wanted to put the monitor onto the side, so this way I could bring the Easy Rig up higher because I'm not tall. So that's one of the downsides of the Easy Rig, is you're pretty much stuck to your own height, which, you know, when I'm filming a 6'3" person, sometimes that's not great. And in these documentary settings, you know, don't always have an Apple box laying around. So I wanted to give that a go. I like the way the rig looks. Spoiler alert, I did wind up changing it, but we'll get more into that later. Day one, we just kind of got there, and we were in a trophy sort of room, Hall of Fame kind of thing, and we were just scouting out interview looks. And as, you know, documentaries and these things sort of happen, things always change and you have to be able to adjust. All of our interviews were canceled that day, so we had to quickly decide, okay, let's go to B-roll. And like I was mentioning just before, I had the rig built out where the monitor was to the left, and right away I was just like, you know what, this doesn't feel correct, because then it's like I'm kind of turning my head to the left, and where I'm just so used to having the monitor right up in my face. I let it rock for a little bit, but then I was like, it's time for a change. Over here, you know, there was a lot of sunlight coming in, so I had the PA flag off the big window. You definitely want to have a polarizer. This way you can kind of cut down that glare and the reflections. So yeah, we got to film some really cool stuff. Got some awesome B-roll that I feel like is definitely going to make the reel for sure. And then, okay, so we did have one interview set up on day one. It was outside. There's Eric, who has been on the channel a few times. There's Matt, Kellen.
What's up, bro?
Awesome, thank you.
Shane.
So where is home base for you guys?
And Maddie over there to the right.
Okay.
So we had a 2 camera setup. Eric is the DP on the show. He was rocking the A7S III. For all the interviews, I let him use my 35mm f1.4. And then me, I'm the B camera, 70-200 FX6. This is always just a really nice setup. I always try to, you know, either diffuse or flag off the sun. It was cloudy at first, as you could kind of see, and then it was starting to get sunny. We made an executive decision just before the interview. Let's put the black side over the big 5-in-1. It wound up being a really nice look to where we kind of flagged off the sun, then used the Amaran 300C with a softbox as our key light. So we don't always get the most time, but I think we've gotten really good at working fast and getting a good look. And I think that's a very important skill to have in your toolkit. And then so later, it was off to baseball practice. This was the first time I ever filmed baseball. It took a little bit of adjusting to, figure out how to film this because it was very fast when the action was happening. It was also so sunny, which kind of also made it a lot more difficult. It was a really good day one, and now on to day two. So day two was a big interview day, and this look here is probably one of my favorite that we did on the documentary. Again, so we're using the Amaran 300C as our key light. We were using the small rig 120 just as kind of like a little accent light to light up the background. And then we were using my Amaran P60X as a hair light. On our key light, we did 2 layers of diffusion, the grid, and 5-in-1 reflector. Softer light is always going to look more pleasing on your subject, and especially so when you're in a really dark space, lighting is just going to seem much more harsh on your subject's face. Just a good tip overall, just try to create gradients of light and darkness on your subject, on the background. This is how you're going to get the most depth. This is going to make your image pop, and this is what's going to keep you getting hired again. Moving on, more setups today. Man, we got super lucky with this amazing Hall of Fame trophy room. It was just one of the most beautiful rooms I've ever been in. One of the tricky parts was all the different screens we had here, so we had to kind of work around that. Another thing I've been appreciating more is just using a nice hard light as a backlight. If you put it up high, it kind of emulates sort of a house light. I feel like every single time I get on a shoot, I learn something new, and you could put a new tool into your toolbox. I feel like that's what it's all about, just learning how to adapt. So we had no control of the house lights, so what we did was just flag them off. This was the first trip I completely used Cine EI. I had in the past just been a custom mode guy, setting my look to S-Log3, still being cognizant of trying to stick to my high bass and my low bass. Maybe I should make a video about my experience using Cine EI. I had reasons why I didn't want to use it before, but I think I might be over those reasons, especially after, using it for a week's worth of shooting days. It kind of really changed my mind about exposure and how I view things. Did another look, we just flipped it around. So we put that small rig light in that movie theater. We put it kind of off to the right. We put it high up, just added enough little exposure into the back. I looked at the image and I was like, man, that's just like a black blob. We need to have a little bit of light in there. All these little pops of light and little gradients of lightness and darkness. This is just how you make your stuff look better. Again, just another shoot where I just feel like I learned a ton. We did have that small rig as the backlight, but then we kind of decided we were getting enough light from the window, so we wound up just like 86ing it. Then we were off to baseball practice. Cloudy, and then started to rain, so the rain rig was totally brought back, which was fun. And then we kind of finished up this leg of the dock with a little bit of town B-roll. This was really fun. Super pretty town, Annapolis, Maryland. Haven't been down here in so long. And then we made our way back to New York. All right, guys. Well, I hope you liked the vlog. I'm going to do another one on part 2 of this documentary. So part 2 will be us at the other school and the game days. Again, this was a really fun shoot. I feel like I learned a ton, and honestly, I love when you're able to travel for work and have a good crew. The vibes were high. We were having a great time. Everyone got along. Some good laughs in between as well. Well, I'm just on a mic, so usually I cheers you guys. So I'm gonna cheers the mics. Psh, cold brew, and I'm gonna say bye. And what you can't see is me waving bye. All right, guys. Peace.